Welcome, you legends. Tonight we close a chapter on Guy de Maupassant, The Horla, a story that began with unease, spiraled into possession, and ended in fire and despair. Our poor protagonist, crushed beneath the weight of an invisible parasite, finds his final act of rebellion is not survival, but destruction. And yet, the question lingers, did he truly defeat the creature, or did madness itself light the match? What makes this ending so haunting is its tragic inevitability. Maupassant, battling his own demons and hallucinations at the time, poured his unraveling mind into these pages. The Horla is both a tale of horror and a personal cry from the abyss, an author writing about possession while being devoured by his own illness. That makes the story not just scary, but heartbreaking. But as one tale closes, another door creaks open. We move now into the twisted imagination of Clark Ashton Smith, a master of the macabre and contemporary of Lovecraft, and a poet who wielded horror like a blade. Our next descent after this story, which will finish off the day, takes us to the Nameless Offspring, a story of family curses, ancient crypts, and something unspeakable lurking in the dark vaults of inheritance. So, still yourself, dear listeners. We have left the invisible predator of the Horla, soon at least, only to descend into the tomb where bloodlines curdle and things best left buried are clawing to rise. Enjoy, you legends. August 7th, I slept quietly. He has drunk the water from my carafe, but he did not disturb my sleep. I wonder if I am mad. Sometimes as I walk in the blazing sunshine along the riverbank, I am filled with doubts of my sanity. Not the vague doubts I have been feeling, but precise and uncompromising doubts. I have seen madmen. I have known men who were intelligent, lucid, even exceptionally clear-headed in everything in life, but on one point, they talked quite clearly, easily, and profoundly about everything, until suddenly, their mind ran onto the rocks of their madness and was there, rent in pieces, strewn to the winds, and foundered in the fearful raging sea, filled with surging waves, fogs, squalls that we call insanity. I should certainly have thought myself mad, absolutely mad, if I were not conscious, if I were not perfectly aware of my state of mind, if I did not get to the bottom of it and analyze it with such complete clearness. I must be, in fact, no worse than the sane man troubled with hallucinations. There must be some unknown disturbance in my brain, one of those disturbances that modern psychologists are trying to observe and elucidate. This disturbance has opened a deep gulf in my mind, in the orderly and logical working of my thoughts. Similar phenomena take place in a dream that drags us through the most unreal phantasmagoria without sowing the least surprise in our minds, because the mechanism of judgment, the controlling censor, is asleep, while the imaginative faculty wakes and works. Can one of the invisible strings that control my mental keyboard have become muted? Sometimes after an accident, a man loses his power to remember proper names or verbs or figures or only dates. The localization of all the different faculties of the mind is now proved. Is there anything surprising, therefore, in the idea that my power of examining the unreality of certain hallucinations has ceased to function in my brain just now? I thought of all this as I walked by the side of the water. The sunlight flung a mantle of light across the river, clothing the earth with beauty, filling my thoughts with love of life, of the swallows whose swift flight is a joy to my eyes, of the riverside grasses whose shuddering whisper contents my ears. Little by little, however, I fell prey to an inexplicable uneasiness. I felt as though some force, an occult force, were paralyzing my movements, halting me, hindering me from going on any further, calling me back. I was oppressed by just such an unhappy impulse to turn back, as one feels when a beloved person has been left at home ill, or one is possessed by foreboding that the illness has taken a turn for the worse. So, in spite of myself, I turned back, sure that I should find bad news waiting in my house, a letter, or a telegram. There was nothing. And I was left more surprised and uneasy than if I had yet another fantastic vision. August 8th. Yesterday I spent a frightful night. He did not manifest himself again, but I felt him near me, spying on me, watching me, taking possession of me, dominating me and more, to be feared when he hid himself in this way. Then he gave notice of his constant invisible presence by supernatural phenomena. However, I slept. August 9th. Nothing, but I am afraid. August 10th. Nothing. What will happen tomorrow? August 11th. Still nothing. I can't remain in my home any longer with this fear and these thoughts in my mind. I shall go away. August 12th. 10 o'clock in the evening. I've been waiting to go away all day. I can't. I've been wanting to carry out the easy, simple act that will set me free. Go out, get into my carriage to go to Rouen. And I can't. Why? August 13th. Under the affliction of certain maladies, all the resources of one's physical being seem crushed. All one's energy exhausted, one's muscles relaxed, one's bones grown as soft as flesh, and one's flesh turned to water. In a strange and wretched fashion, I suffer all these pains in my spiritual being. I have no strength, no courage, no control over myself, no power even to summon up my will. I can will nothing, but someone wills for me, and I obey. August 14th. I am lost. Someone has taken possession of my soul and is master of it. Someone orders all my acts, all my movements, all my thoughts. I am no longer anything. I am only a spectator, enslaved and terrified by all the things I do. I wish to go out. I cannot. He does not wish it, and I remain dazed, trembling in the armchair where he keeps me seated. I desire no more than to give up, to raise myself, so that I can think I am master of myself again. I can't do it. I am riveted to my seat, and my seat is fast to the ground, in such fashion that no force could lift us. Then all at once I must go to the bottom of my garden and pick strawberries and eat them. Oh my God. Oh my God, is there a God? If there is one, deliver me, save me, help me, pardon me, pity me, have mercy on me. I suffer. Now I am tortured. How terrible this is. August 15th. Well, think how my poor cousin was possessed and overmastered when she came to borrow 5,000 francs from me. She submitted to an alien will that had entered into her, as if it were another soul, a parasitic, tyrannical soul. Is the world coming to an end? But what is this being? This invisible being who is ruling me? This unknowable creature, this wanderer, from a supernatural race, so unseen ones exist? Then, why is it that since the world began they have never manifested themselves in so unmistakable a fashion as they are now manifesting themselves to me? I have never read of anything like the things that are happening under my roof. If I could only leave it, if I could only go away, fly away, and return no more, I should be saved, but I can't. August 16th. Today, I was able to escape for 2 hours, like a prisoner who finds the door of his cell accidentally left open. I felt that I was suddenly set free, that he had withdrawn himself. I ordered the horses to be put in the carriage as quickly as possible, and I reached Rouen. Oh, what a joy it was to find myself able to tell a man, "Go to Rouen," and be obeyed. I stopped at the library, and I asked them to lend me the long treatise of Dr. Hermann Herestauss on the unseen inhabitants of the antique and modern worlds. Then, just as I was getting back into my carriage with the words, "To the station," on my lips, I shouted. I didn't speak, I shouted in a voice so loud that the passerbys turned round. "Home!" And I fell overwhelmed with misery on the cushions of my carriage. He had found me again and taken possession once more. August 17th. What a night! What a night! Nevertheless, it seems to me I ought to congratulate myself. I read until 1 o'clock in the morning Hermann Herestauss, a doctor of philosophy, and Theogony has written an account of all the invisible beings who wander among men or have been imagined by men's minds. He described their origins, their domains, their power, but none of them is the least like the being who haunts me. It is as if man, the thinker, has had a foreboding vision of some new being, mightier than himself, who shall succeed him in this world, and, in his terror, feeling him draw near and unable to guess at the nature of this master, he has created all the fantastic crowd of occult beings, dim phantoms born of fear. Well, I read until 1 o'clock, and then I seated myself near my open window to cool my head and my thoughts in the gentle air of night. It was fine and warm. In other days, how I should have loved such a night. No moon. The stars wavered and glittered in the black depths of the sky. Who dwells in this world? What forms of life, what living creatures, what animals of plants do they hold? What more than we do the thinkers in those far-off universes know? What more can they do than we? What do they see that we do not know of? Perhaps one of them, someday or other, will cross the gulf of space and appear on our Earth as a conqueror, just as in olden days the Normans crossed the sea to subdue wealthy nations. We others are so infirm, so defenseless, so ignorant, so small, on this grain of dust that revolves and crumbles in a drop of water. So dreaming, I fell asleep in the fresh evening air. I slept for about 40 minutes and opened my eyes again without moving, roused by I know not what vague and strange emotions. At first I saw nothing. Then all at once I thought that the page of a book lying open on my table had turned over itself. Not a breath of air came in at the window. I was surprised, and I sat waiting. About 4 minutes later I saw with my own eyes another page come up and turn back on the preceding one, as if a finger had folded it back. My armchair was empty, or seemed empty, but I realized that he was there. He, sitting in my place and reading. In one wild spring, like the spring of a maddened beast resolved to eviscerate his trainer, I crossed the room to seize him and crush him and kill him. But before I had reached it, my seat turned right over as if he had fled before me. My table rocked, my lamp fell and was extinguished, and my window slammed shut, as if I had surprised a malefactor who had flung himself out into the darkness, tugging at the sashes with all his force. So he had run away. He had been afraid of me. Me! Then, tomorrow, Or the day after. Or someday. I should be able to get him between my fingers and crush him against the ground. Don't dogs sometimes bite and fly at their masters' throats? August 18th. I've been thinking things over all day. Oh yes, I'll obey him, satisfy his impulses to his will, make myself humble, submissive, servile. He is the stronger, but an hour will come. August 19th. I know now. I know everything. I have just read the following in the Revue du Monde Scientifique. It reads as follows. A strange piece of news reaches us from Rio de Janeiro. Madness, an epidemic of madness, comparable to the contagious outbursts of dementia that attacked the peoples of Europe in the Middle Ages, is raging at this day in the district of São Paulo. The districted inhabitants are quitting their houses, deserting their villages, abandoning their fields, declaring themselves to be pursued, possessed, and ordered about, like a human herd, by certain invisible but tangible beings, vampires of some kind who feed on their vitality while they sleep, in addition to drinking milk and water without, apparently, touching any other form of food. Professor Don Pedro Henriquez, accompanied by several learned doctors, has set out for the district of São Paulo to study on the spot the origins and the forms taken by this surprising madness, and to suggest to the emperor such measures as appear to him most likely to restore the delirious inhabitants to sanity. I remember the lovely three-masted Brazilian that sailed past my windows on the 8th of last May on her way up the Seine. I thought her such a bonny white gay boat. The being was on board her, come from over the sea, where his race is born. He saw me. He saw my house, white like the ship, and he jumped from the vessel to the bank. Oh my God! Now I know. I understand. The reign of man is at an end. He is here, whom the dawning fears of primitive peoples taught them to dread. He who exercised by troubled priests, evoked in the darkness of night by wizards who yet never saw him materialize, to whom the foreboding vision of the masters who have passed through this world lent all the monstrous, all gracious forms of gnomes, spirits, jinns, fairies, and hobgoblins. Primitive terror visualized him in the crudest forms. Later, wiser men have seen him more clearly. Mesmer foresaw him, and it is 10 years since doctors made the most exact inquiries into the nature of his power, even before he exercised it himself. They have been making a plaything of this weapon of the new god, this imposition of a mysterious will on the enslaved soul of man. They called it magnetism, hypnotism, suggestion, anything you like. I have seen them amusing themselves with this horrible power like foolish children. Woe to us. Cursed is man. He is here, what is his name? It seems as if he was shouting his name in my ear, and I cannot hear it. Yes, he is shouting it. I'm listening. I can't hear again. Tell me again the Horla. I heard the Horla. It is he. The Horla, he is here. Oh, the vulture has been used to eat the dove, the wolf to eat the sheep, the lion to devour the sharp-horned buffalo, man to kill the lion with arrow, spear, and gun, but the Horla is going to make of man what he had made of those horses and the cows, his thing, his servant, and his food, by the mere force of his will. Woe to us. But sometimes the beast rebels and kills his tamer. I too want. I could, but I must know him, touch him, see him. Scientists say that the eye of the beast is not like ours and does not see as ours does, and my eye fails to show me this newcomer who is oppressing me. Why? Oh, the words of the monk of Mont Saint-Michel come to my mind. Do we see the 100,000th part of all that exists? Think. There's the wind, the greatest force in nature which throws down man, shatters buildings, uproots trees, stirs up the sea into watery mountains, destroys cliffs and tosses the tall ships against the shore. The wind that kills, whistles, groans, roars. Have you seen it? Can you see it? Nevertheless, it exists. And I consider myself further. My eye is so weak, so imperfect, that it does not distinguish even solid bodies that have the transparency of glass. If a looking glass that has no foil backing bars my path, I hurl myself against it as a bird that has got into a room breaks its head on the window pane. How many other things deceive and mislead my eye? Then what is there to be surprised at in its failure to see a new body that offers no resistance to the passage of light? A new being. Why not? He must assuredly come. Why should we be the last? Why is he not seen of our eyes as all the beings created before us? Because his form is nearer perfection, his body finer and completer than ours, which is so weak, so clumsily conceived, encumbered by organs always tired, always breaking down like a too complex mechanism, which lives like a vegetable or a beast, drawing its substance with difficulty from the air, the herbs of the field and meat, a living machine subject to sickness, deformity and corruption, drawing its breath in pain, ill-regulated, simple and fantastic, ingeniously ill-made, clumsily and delicately erected, the mere rough sketch of a being who could become intelligent and noble. There have been so few kinds created in the world, from the bivalve to man. Why not one more? When we reach the end of the period of time that separates each successive appearance of a species from that which appeared before it. Why not one more? Why not also new kinds of trees bearing monstrous flowers, blazing with color and filling all the countryside with their perfume? Why not other elements like fire, air, earth, and water? There are only four sources of our being. What a pity. Why not 40, 400, 4,000? How poor and brutish is life. Grudgingly given, meanly conceived, stupidly executed. Consider the grace of the elephant, the hippopotamus, the elegance of the camel. You bid me consider the butterfly, a winged flower. I can imagine one vast as 100 worlds, with wings for whose shape, beauty, color, and sweep I cannot find any words to. But I see it. It goes from star to star, refreshing and perfuming them with the soft, gracious wind of its passing. And the people of the upper air watch it pass, in an ecstasy of joy. What is the matter with me? It is he, the Horla, who is haunting me, filling my head with these absurdities. He is in me, he has become my soul, and I will kill him. August 19th. I will kill him. I have seen him. I was sitting at my table yesterday evening, making a great show of being very absorbed in writing. I knew quite well that he would come and prowl around me, very close to me, so close that I might be able to touch him, seize him, perhaps. And then I should be filled with the strength of desperation. I should have hands, knees, chest, face, teeth to strangle him, crush him, tear him, rend him. With every sense quiveringly alert, I watched for him. I had lit both my lamps and the 8 candles on my chimney piece, as if I thought I should be more likely to discover him by this bright light. In front of me was my bed, an old oak 4-poster. On my right, the fireplace. On my left, my door carefully shut. After I had left it open for a long time to attract him, behind me, a very tall cupboard with a mirror front, which I used every day to shave and dress by, and in which I always regarded myself from head to foot whenever I passed in front of it. Well, I pretended to write, to deceive him, because he was spying on me too. And all at once I was certain that he was reading over my shoulder, that he was there, his breath on my ear. I stood up, my hand outstretched, and turned round so quickly that I almost fell. The room was as light as day, and I could not see myself in my looking glass. It was empty, transparent, deep, filled with light. I was not reflected in it, and I was standing in front of it. I could see the wide, limpid expanse of glass from top to bottom, and I stared at it with a distraught gaze. I daren't move another step. I daren't make another movement. Nevertheless, I felt that he was there, whose immaterial body had swallowed up my reflection, but that he would elude me still. How frightened I was. A moment later, my reflection began to appear in the depths of the looking glass in a sort of mist, as if I were looking at it through water. This water seemed to flow from left to right, slowly, so that moment by moment my reflection emerged more distinctly. It was like the passing of an eclipse. The thing that was concealing me appeared to possess no sharply defined outlines, but a kind of transparent opacity that gradually cleared. At last I could see myself from head to foot, just as I saw myself every day when I looked in the glass. I had seen him, the horror of it still on me, making me shudder. August 20th. How can I kill him? Since I cannot touch him? Poison? But he would see me put it in the water, and besides, would our poisons affect an immaterial body? No, they certainly would not. Then how? How? August 21st, I have sent for a locksmith from Rouen and ordered him to fit my room with iron shutters, such as they have in certain hotels in Paris, to keep out robbers. He is to make me also a similar sort of door. Everyone thinks me a coward, but much I care for that. September 10th. Rouen, Hotel Continental. It is done. It is done. Oh yes, but is he dead? My brain reels with what I've seen. Yesterday the locksmith put up my iron shutters and my iron door, and I left everything open until midnight, although it began to get cold. All at once I felt his presence, and I was filled with joy, a mad joy. I rose slowly to my feet and walked about the room for a long time, so that he should suspect nothing. Then I took off my boots and carelessly drew on my slippers. Then I closed my iron shutters, and sauntering back towards the door, I double-locked it too. Then I walked back to the window and secured it with a padlock, putting the key in my pocket. Suddenly I realized that he was prowling anxiously around me. He was afraid now, and commanding me to open them for him. I almost yielded. Almost. I did not yield, but leaning on the door, I set it ajar, just wide enough for me to slip outwards. And, as I am very tall, my head touched the lintel. I was sure that he could not have got out, and I shut him in alone, all alone. Thank goodness. I had him. Then I ran downstairs in the drawing room, which is under my room. I took both my lamps and emptied the oil all over the carpet and the furniture, everything. Then I set it on fire, and I fled after having double-locked the main door. And I went and hid myself at the bottom of my garden in a grove of laurels. How long it took, how long. Everything was dark, silent, still, not a breath of air, not a star. Mountains of unseen clouds that lay so heavily on my spirit. I kept my gaze fixed on my house and waited. How long it took. I was beginning to think that the fire had died out of itself, or that he had put it out, when one of the lower windows fell in under the fierce breath of the fire and the flame. A great red and yellow flame, a long, curling, caressing flame, leaped up the white wall and pressed its kiss on the roof itself. A flood of light poured over trees, branches, and leaves, and with that, a shudder of fear ran through them. The birds woke, a dog howled. I thought the dawn was at hand. In a moment, 2 more windows burst into flame, and I saw that the lower half of my house was now one frightful furnace. But a cry, a frightful, piercing, agonizing cry, a woman's cry, stabbed the night, and 2 skylights opened. I had forgotten my servants. I saw their distraught faces and their wildly waving arms. Then, frantic with horror, I began to run toward the village, shouting, "Help! Help! Fire! Fire!" I met people already on their way to the house, and I turned back with them to look at it. By now the house was no more than a horrible and magnificent funeral pyre, a monstrous pyre lighting up the whole earth, a pyre that was consuming men, consuming him, my prisoner, the new being, the new master, the Horla. The whole roof fell in with a sudden crash, and a volcano of flames leapt to the sky. Through all the windows open on the furnace, I saw the fiery vat, and I reflected that he was there in this oven, dead. Dead? Perhaps. His body? Perhaps that body through which light fell could not be destroyed by the methods that kill our bodies. Suppose he is not dead. Perhaps only time has power over the invisible and dreadful one. Why should this transparent, unknowable body, this body of the spirit, fear sickness, wounds, infirmity, premature destruction? Premature destruction, the source of all human dread. After man, the Horla. After him who can die any day, any hour, any moment, by accidents or of all kinds, comes he who can only die in his appointed day, hour, and moment, when he has attained the limit of his existence. No, I know he is not dead, so I must kill myself now. And yes, legends, so ends the Horla that has left a permanent mark on our protagonist. So much so that they would end their own life. I hope you legends enjoyed this story, a two-parter, as much as I enjoyed reading it. It was an absolute blast. And what a crazy ending. I'll include the link to this original story in the episode notes, just in case you want some bedtime reading. And now, I'm going to start the next story, which is The Nameless Offspring by Clark Ashton Smith. Published in 1932 in Strange Tales, Volume 2, Number 2. The genre is horror, gothic, fantasy. Enjoy. Many and multiform are the dim horrors of Earth, infesting her ways from the prime. They sleep beneath the unnurtured stone, they rise with the tree from its roots. They move beneath the sea and in subterranean places. They dwell in the innocent Idiata. They emerge betimes from the sepulchre of haughty bronze and the low grave that is sealed with clay. There may be some that are long known to man, and others as yet unknown that abide the terrible latter days of their revealing. Those which are the most dreadful and the loathliest of all are happily still to be declared. But among those that have revealed themselves aforetime and have made manifest their veritable presence, there is one which may not openly be named for its exceeding foulness. It is that spawn which the hidden dweller in the vaults has begotten upon mortality. And this is from the Necronomicon of Abdul al-Hazred. In a sense, it is fortunate that the story I must now relate should be so largely a thing of undetermined shadows, of half-shaped hints and forbidden inferences. Otherwise, it could never be written by human hand or read by human eye. My own slight part in the hideous drama was limited to its last act, and to me its earlier scenes were merely a remote and ghastly legend. Yet, even so, the broken reflex of its unnatural horrors has crowded out in perspective the main events of normal life, has made them seem no more than frail gossamers, woven on the dark, windy verge of some unsealed abyss, some deep, half-open charnel, wherein Earth's nethermost corruptions lurk and fester. The legend of which I speak was familiar to me from childhood as a theme of family whispers and head shaking. For Sir John Tremouth had been a schoolmate of my father. But I had never met Sir John, had never visited Tremouth Hall, till the time of those happenings which formed the final tragedy. My father had taken me from England to Canada when I was a small infant. He had prospered in Manitoba as an apiarist, and after his death, the bee ranch had kept me too busy for years to execute a long-cherished dream of visiting my natal land and exploring its rural byways. When finally I set sail, the story was pretty dim in my memory, and Tremeth Hall was no conscious part of my itinerary when I began a motorcycle tour of the English counties. In any case, I should never have been drawn to the neighborhood out of morbid curiosity, such as the frightful tale might possibly have evoked in others. My visit, as it happened, was purely accidental. I had forgotten the exact location of the place and did not even dream that I was in its vicinity. If I had known, it seems to me that I should have turned aside, in spite of the circumstances that impelled me to seek shelter, rather than intrude upon the almost demoniacal misery of its owner. When I came to Tremeth Hall, I had ridden all day in early autumn through a rolling countryside with leisurely winding thoroughfares and lanes. The day had been fair with skies of pale azure above noble parks that were tinged with the first amber and crimson of the following year. But toward the middle of the afternoon, a mist had come in from the hidden ocean across low hills and had closed me about with this moving phantom circle. Somehow in that deceptive fog I managed to lose my way to miss the milepost that would have given me my direction to the town where I'd planned to spend the ensuing night. I went on for a while, at random, thinking that I should soon reach another crossroad. The way that I followed was little more than a rough lane and was singularly deserted. The fog had darkened and drawn closer, obliterating all horizons, but from what I could see of it, the country was one of heath and boulders with no sign of cultivation. I topped a level ridge and went down a long, monotonous slope as the mist continued to thicken with twilight. I thought that I was riding toward the west, but before me, in the wan dusk, there was no faintest gleaming or flare of color to betoken the drowned sunset. A dank odor that was touched with salt, like the smell of sea marshes, came to meet me. The road turned at a sharp angle, and I seemed to be riding between downs and marshlands. The night gathered with an almost unnatural quickness, as if in haste to overtake me, and I began to feel a sort of dim concern and alarm, as if I had gone astray in regions that were dubious than an English county. The fog and twilight seemed to withhold a silent landscape of chill, deathly, disquieting mystery. Then, to the left of my road and a little before me, I saw a light that somehow suggested a mournful and tear-dimmed eye. It shone among blurred, uncertain masses that were like trees from a ghostland wood. A nearer mass, as I approached it, was resolved in a small lodge building, such as would guard the entrance of some estate. It was dark and apparently unoccupied. Passing and peering, I saw the outlines of a wrought iron gate in a hedge of untrimmed yew. It all had a desolate and forbidding air, and I felt it in my very marrow, the brooding chillness that had come in from the unseen marsh in that dismal, ever-coiling fog. But the light was promise of human nearness on the lonely downs, and I might obtain shelter for the night, or at least find someone who could direct me to a town or inn. Somewhat to my surprise, the gate was unlocked. It swung inward with a rusty grating sound, as if it had not been opened for a long time, and pushing my motorcycle before me, I followed a weed-grown drive toward the light. The rambling mass of a larger manor house disclosed itself among trees and shrubs whose artificial forms, like the hedge of a ragged yew, were assuming a wilder grotesquerie that they had received from the hand of the topiary. The fog had turned into a bleak drizzle, almost groping at the gloom. I found the dark door at some distance from the window that gave forth a solitary light. In response to my thrice-repeated knock, I heard at length the muffled sound of slow, dragging footfalls. The door was opened with a gradualness that seemed to indicate caution or reluctance, and I saw before me an old man, bearing a lighted taper in his hand. His fingers trembled with palsy, or decrepitude, and monstrous shadows flickered behind him in a dim hallway and touched his wrinkled features, as with the flitting of ominous bat-like wings.
"What do you wish, sir?"
he asked. The voice, though quavering and hesitant, was far from churlish and did not suggest the attitude of suspicion and downright inhospitality, which I had begun to apprehend. However, I sensed a sort of irresolution or dubiety, and as the old man listened to my account of the circumstances that had led me to knock at that lonely door, I saw that he was scrutinizing me with a keenness that belied my first impression of extreme senility.
"I knew you were a stranger in these parts, but might I inquire your name, sir?"
"I am Henry Chaldane."
"Are you not the son of Mr. Arthur Chaldane?"
Somewhat mystified, I admitted the ascribed paternity.
"You resemble your father, sir. Mr. Chaldane and Sir John Tremouth were great friends in the days before your father went to Canada. Will you not come in, sir? This is Tremouth Hall. Sir John has not been in the habit of receiving guests for a long time, but I shall tell him that you are here, and it may be that he will wish to see you."
Startled and not altogether agreeably surprised at the discovery of my whereabouts, I followed the old man to a book-linked study whose furnishings bore evidence of luxury and neglect. Here he lit an oil lamp of antique fashion with a dusty painted shade and left me alone with the dustier volumes and furniture. I felt a queer embarrassment, a sense of actual intrusion, as I waited in the wan yellow lamplight. There came back to me the details of the strange, horrific, half-forgotten stories I had overheard from my father in childhood years. And this is where we'll stop just for now, and we will continue the Nameless Offspring just before the point of Lady Agatha Tremouth, Sir John's wife, is discussed regarding their first year of marriage. And there we have it, the closing chapter of The Horla, a story that embodies so many of horror's darkest themes. The fragility of sanity, the terror of the unseen, and the crushing weight of forces beyond our control. Is it madness? Is it a parasite from beyond our world? Or is it both entwined, feeding on each other until nothing human is left? Maupassant himself may never ever have known, for he wrote this while sliding into his own shadows, consumed by hallucinations and despair. But horror is a chain of stories, each link tightening as we descend. From the invisible to the unnameable, our next step is Clark Ashton Smith's The Nameless Offspring. If the Horla was a terror of the unseen, then Smith's tale is horror made flesh, clawing from tombs, dragging ancestral sins into the present. Join me in the next episode as we leave behind the phantom breath on our necks and descend into the crypts to confront the horrors of blood and bone. And before the crypt door swings shut, I must thank the brave souls who held their lanterns in this darkness. First up is my majestic, brilliant Ode Night Tea Titan, Matto Star. Mate, if the Horla crept into our world, you'd be the first to chart its path. The quiet guardian mapping the invisible, and now as we step into Smith's tomb, you'd be the one carrying the torch, steady and unwavering, even as unspeakable things stir in the dark. You are not just a supporter, you're the shield that keeps this tale and this podcast alive. Thank you so much, Matto, for being my pal and for supporting me in the way that you do. Absolutely jaw-dropping support and friendship. Have a majestic week ahead, legend. Thank you so much. And to my white tea warlords, Lesosaurus Rex, whose strength would slam the crypt lid shut on any cursed offspring clawing free, breaking bones and binding darkness with sheer will. Mate, I hope your gym session today is bonkers good, Have a brilliant week ahead, and thank you so much for your friendship and your support. My next White Tea Warlord is Maya, the Queen of Cats, whose feline eyes would spot the slinking horrors before they strike. Her guardians prowling the crypt with hisses that chase back shadows. Thank you, Maya, for your amazing friendship and support. And have a brilliant week ahead yourself. Thank you. And lastly, my final White Tea Warlord, Sangeetha, the seer who had sensed the curse long before it unfurled, whispering truths that keep us from walking blind into the tomb. Sangeetha, thank you so much for your awesome self and your friendship. Have a brilliant week as well. To each of you, thank you for being my wardens against the dark and my guardians in the endless parade of shadows. I do want to thank my majestic Earl Grey enforcers and all tiers thereafter I am lucky to have. Chad Warren, Peter Raffaelli, Just Heather, Juicebox Andy, Divided by Zero, Paige Kramer, Seductive Smiles, Jane Gumnick, and Michael Krupp. Thank you so much, you legends. Have a brilliant week ahead yourselves. Stay safe, and I'll have more stories just on their way around the corner. As always, mates, till next we meet.
I locked the doors, I barred the light, still it came to drink the night. An unseen hand, a shadow near, it took my breath, it left me fear. The it drinks the soul and it silences me. I burn the walls, I burn it all, but flames can save the one who falls. My pen still moves, though not my own. Each word it writes is carved in stone. A silent guest, a hollow friend. It claims my life, it claims the end. Drinks the soul and it silences me. I burn the walls, I burn it all, but flames can't save the one who falls. If madness calls me home tonight, just be my only light. And should they find me where I lie, they'll never know the reason why. The Horla waits where I cannot see. It drinks the soul. So high, my toast star, Lysosaurus, Maya Sangeetha.